Thank you. I feel like most people have gone home now, which kind of takes the pressure off a little bit. Quite nice. Thank you very much for having me here tonight. When I was first invited to speak about this topic, I thought it was really interesting and quite up my street. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about me and my personal journey and what I've learned over the years, particularly since running my own business. Hopefully that will help share a few learning experiences. So I've done quite a lot of thinking around this topic, and first of all, it would be really good just to get a little bit of an understanding about what exactly learning means to you. So what are the first words that come to mind when you hear the word learning? Shout out, don't be shy. School. Yeah. Yep, exactly the same lines as I was thinking. So my very first thoughts went to academia. So similar to Rowan Nook, I actually went on and got a definition as to exactly what learning is, because we were all so interesting. And yeah, so I found that, the acquisition of knowledge or skills through study, so that's obviously what we all think about is the academic side, but it's the experience part of this quote, which I think really resonates more so with me. There are obviously loads of different ways of learning, some fantastic people out there who I do think most people are really willing to share their knowledge and help you pick their brains. So I'm a massive advocate of being a little bit cheeky and asking anyone and everyone to do that everyone who you think would be worthwhile to anyway. Like I say, though, for me, it's more about the experience, the situations, and people, I feel, is like the main ways of learning. And also about yourself. You learn a lot about yourself, like, the older you get and through various experiences. And that's kind of more what I'll touch on more than anything else. I do also think it's really worthwhile at this point just pointing out just whether learning is always a good thing. Because immediately we kind of go straight to thinking, yeah, it's great, we're constantly learning, it's a brilliant thing. But actually, it's not always such a good thing. We can learn quite unhealthy things and beliefs that aren't always the greatest for us. So I will actually give you an example of that slightly later on. So because academia is the first thing that goes to most of our minds when we think of studying, I thought it would just be nice to share a few baby photos of me, like young, cute. Before I obviously knew much about PR, stood in front of a poster for Leeds School's Drugs Ring Smashed. I'm not really sure why that was taken, but I just thought I'd share that with you. That was obviously very pre-PR there. But the other photo is actually my Year 3 report card, and this is what I'd written as 7, 8 years old. And it kind of sums up exactly what school meant to me. It wasn't so much about going to school to study and learn, it was about getting to run around with my friends, talking too much. And the biggest learning, I would say, that I had from school was the sheer terror of having to start again, because my mum was a primary school teacher, so I initially went to the same school that she taught at. And she sadly went through this horrible, stressful legal battle where a child had accused her of hitting them. She got cleared of it, it was fine, she got a job back. But while she was suspended, I had to move into another primary school. And that kind of fear of having to start again from scratch and make all these new friends when I'd been brought up with people, like the new people, they'd known each other since they were 4 years old. That was terrifying, and I think that was kind of a big learning curve for me. And then similarly going into high school as well. For me, school was more about peer pressure, and obviously being a hormonal teenager, it wasn't the greatest time, if I'm honest. And I was really quite late to realising that we were there to learn, that actually these elusive GCSEs were probably something I should get my head down and try to get some of. So it was only about year 9 or 10 that I really started to think, yeah, I'd better start working. And I've never been the strongest sort of person academically, so I really had to work my ass off just to get grade C's. I got a couple of B's, and I got an A in food tech, which I was still quite proud about. So it was only really going to sixth form, I just kind of went because I didn't know what I wanted to do, so why not stay on, go to sixth form. But it was there that I discovered psychology, and I finally was studying something that I was really interested in and really passionate about. So from there, I went on to study that at university. And still to this day, I'm a massive fan of psychology. I love the theory behind it, but I think because it was a Bachelor of Sciences, it was very statistical focused, it was a lot of lab reports, it kind of sucked the fun out of it for me. So I knew I didn't want to be a psychologist anymore. I wanted to start earning some money. I would have had to stay on, do a master's degree. So at this point, for me, I knew I had to go and start earning some money, but no idea what I wanted to do. But I've always worked, so from anyone else sort of my age, probably a bit older than the majority of the room, but most of us had a paper around about 12 years old. And then from 15, I've always worked, so you name it, I've done it, from cleaning toilets to hotel rooms to waitressing, working in bars, shops, cafes, I've done it. And actually that taught me a lot about myself, was how much I loved that independence and being able to earn my own money. So that was a big learning curve for me. But it was only when I then left university that I actually feel going from those jobs, I actually went into more like proper careers. And after uni, I'd just got a job to keep me going as a receptionist, and I was trying to figure out what it was I wanted to do. And I came across a job for an energy saving firm. And it was only an admin position, but I thought, wow, that's a sector that really interests me. I've always been quite green, interested in the environment, something that I would quite enjoy getting involved in. So I went along to the interview and I spoke really passionately about all these promotions that I could get involved in, and had they thought about these various things and messages we could be doing. And little did I know at the time that what I was actually pitching was marketing and PR. But the marketing manager on the panel took a real shine to me and actually invited me back to interview for a marketing position. So I went back to that and I got this job. So they'd kind of created it for me because there wasn't enough funding for a sole marketing position. So I had a half admin job, half marketing role, and I absolutely loved the marketing role. It was brilliant. And finally, I was doing something that I was learning about. I was doing it on the job, and I was getting paid for it, and it was brilliant. I'd never had that before. But then a few months into that role, just a couple of months, the marketing manager suddenly left one day. And the CEO pulled us all into a meeting, told us not to panic. It was business as usual, apart from the marketing would be outsourced to the council. So my heart absolutely sank. I finally got this job I loved. I knew I had no qualifications, very little experience. There was no way I was going to get another job doing that. So I tried and failed. But a few months later, the same company actually won the contract to deliver the Energy Saving Trust Advice Centre for the region, and they recruited a load of jobs whilst doing that. And one of the positions was a marketing role, so again, I went for that role and got down to the final two. There was a girl far more qualified than me who got the job, but because I was the only one in this, so they put me into the contract, and I was the only person from the existing company. I was working quite closely with her, and then she decided, I promised I didn't push her out at all, but she decided it wasn't for her. So I thought, oh, maybe this is my chance, I can go for it again. And they were going to recruit for that role again, and it was my manager at the time who said, for God's sake, will you give Ellie a chance? Can you see how desperately she wants it? She is so passionate, she is going to work her ass off. So I owe him an awful lot, because finally I got that role. I'd clawed my way into this marketing and PR position, and it didn't disappoint. I absolutely loved it. I stayed with that company for nearly 5 years, worked my way up within the firm, and they actually paid for me to do my Chartered Institute of Marketing qualifications. And that's why I've labelled this career-based learning, which is obviously so much more common these days, which is a fantastic thing. After that role, because sadly the Tories took all the funding away, there were a lot of redundancies being made, so I decided to jump ship before I was pushed. I went on to be marketing manager for the Chamber of Commerce. And again, the learning that I got to do on the job there was great in terms of getting a leadership and management qualification. And I got some really good on-the-job experience from a slightly different side of PR, a bit more journalistic, becoming the editor of the Chamber's business magazine. But the real key learning for me was observing all these other young business owners and seeing them starting their own venture and thinking, wow, that's something I would absolutely love to do. But sadly, I just didn't have the confidence to go ahead and do it. As I mentioned at the beginning, I don't think learning is always the great thing, and we do learn quite negative, unhealthy things. And a few things that had happened to me previously in my life. So, for example, my dad took his own life when I was only 4 years old. And, being teased in school for being too skinny, these sort of things, they'd really affected me and my confidence. So I got to this point and I thought, oh my God, I can do this. I want to run my own business. But I just did not believe in myself, which is been the biggest learning curve for me now since then. So anyway, a job came up at a PR agency and I decided to go for that. And it was a very, very different way of working. It was really fast-paced, there was a huge variety of promoting all these different kinds of firms, becoming a mini expert from everything from lighting to bakery to manufacturing, you name it. And it was long hours, but I just absolutely loved the role. Sadly, however, the employers weren't the nicest people, hence not naming them up there. So that's when I decided to go and set up on my own. So nearly 5 years ago now, I formed my own firm. And within that time, both myself and my company have won a few awards. We've worked with over 100 firms to help raise their profile and credibility. And right from the beginning, I was really adamant that I needed to do something that I would really love, that I'd be really proud of, and that I would uphold the values and everything that I believe in. And I won't read them out, the values are there, you can read. But I'd never ever run a business before, so that was a massive new learning curve for me. So first of all, like I say, knew that it had to be something I wanted to be really proud of and exactly what my values and ethos was going to stand for. But I used to think that imposter syndrome that you get, that sometimes, nearly 5 years on now, I still get it, and you think, oh God, people are going to realize I'm not a real business person, I'm just playing at this. But luckily, I had loads of contacts through my role working with the chamber. Networking was basically my job then. So I went out and just met up with as many of these people as possible, took them for a coffee, asked if they had any interest in what I was now doing, could they recommend anybody who did, and I'd book onto these networking events. And I'd be absolutely petrified about going to them, but I just thought, right, fake it till you make it. Walk in, hold your head up high, big smile on your face, and gradually I think, I've trained my brain to think, no, you are confident, you can do this. And the more you believe it, others will believe it as well. And of course, you don't know everything yourself, so it's so important to seek support from other people. And I've been really lucky to be on some fantastic accelerator programs, so Entrepreneurial Spark, which is now the NatWest Accelerator, where I met Owen and a few other people in here tonight. That was a fantastic place, because only 4-5 years ago, I would not have accepted this invitation to speak here tonight. Public speaking terrified me so much. But they, on that program, were all about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, push you out of your comfort zone. And that really is true. Like, that is where the magic happens. If you stay with just what you know, you never fully develop. But at Entrepreneurial Spark, they would make us get up and practice your pitch every 2 weeks, a room full of sort of 70 to 80 other entrepreneurs. But these were fantastic, like-minded people that were there to help you share on your journey, keep getting you up there to develop it. And gradually I became, I'm not going to say I love this now, still crapping myself if I'm honest, but I'm doing it, I'm up here, and I'm so proud of myself for doing that. And so it's so important to surround yourself with really great people. So people that know things. I don't think you should try to be everything to everyone. I've never been a numbers financial person. Luckily now I've got fantastic FD, so I don't need to be. But also those amazing people who are going to celebrate success with you and pick you up when things go wrong as well. Because they will. The shit will hit the fan. When you are an entrepreneur in an early stage of a business, it is such a roller coaster. I mean, things happen to us all, generally being people, in your personal life and in your business life. The important thing is to acknowledge that things will go wrong and change them quickly. So you really have to become as adaptable and resilient as possible. And it's a very pixelated quote, but I like it. Basically, you regret the things you don't do rather than the things you give it a good go. And I always think that's a much better way of living. When you look back on your life on your deathbed, you'll probably think, well, it didn't quite work out, but at least I bloody gave it a go and tried. And that's my kind of mentality to things. And like I say, things will happen all the time, personally and in business, but how you deal with it is important. And there's quite a big change for me in my business, which is why I think I was invited here tonight. Because within my first year of running the business, I'd taken on an employee, and then over the next 2 years, I grew that to quite a team of employees. And I've had some absolutely fantastic members of staff. But it was tough, and I just became this people manager, and it was not what I wanted to do. I was no longer doing the PR, which I loved. I wasn't promoting businesses like I used to love. I actually started to hate going to work in my own business, and just wasn't right at all. So, collaboration has always been a key value of mine. I knew lots of other freelance PRs and other agency owners. So it was the end of 2018, I decided to change my business model, and now we have a community of freelance director-level specialists. And I was really nervous, first of all, about telling my clients and prospective clients in my network about this change, because it is quite different. But I do think it's such a positive thing, because if I've got, for example, a food and drink client, I'll pull in food and drink industry experts or tech people, whatever's needed. If it's digital PR experts I need, I'll get them. And then I form like little teams hand-selected for certain clients. And I've got long-standing clients who have commented on the business model from when they knew it before as employees to now, and they've said, it's so much better. We've never been in as many nationals and got as many clickbacks and links, which is obviously so important to businesses these days. And I think it really works because, I always hated the hierarchy. I never wanted to be the boss. I just wanted to get along with everyone, which is probably why it didn't work. But these people now, we work side by side next to each other, and it's nice. There's so much less stress there for me. I've got a better work-life balance. I feel happier. And these people, they know that, they're self-employed entrepreneurs themselves. They have to work to earn the money, and they have to get the results. Like if our client wants to grow the business, which is the usual objective for hiring us for PR, then we have to be able to deliver that. And that's what these people help me to achieve. And as you can see from this next slide, that's not looking very good. It looks a lot better on my computer. But trust me, generally this is our business growth over the last 3 years, and where the arrow is when the freelancer model kicked in. So I'm not saying that massive spike is purely based on the model. We did pick up a big piece of work. But as you can see, we, generally, as most businesses, have peaks and troughs throughout the year. But on the whole, we continue to grow. And this model has worked really well for me. So like I say, it is something I'm conscious that it's quite a different way of working, but something that, for me, is better. Because I think it's really important to understand what success means to you. For me, it's not about being filthy rich and growing this ginormous empire. Ultimately, I just think life's too short. I just want to be happy. I want to work with great people, do things I love and enjoy. And for me, that's what it's all about. And that's me. Thank you very much.